All right, hey there everyone. My name's Spencer. I'm here to do a bit of React Native development. I've been doing React Native development for a few years and teach through reactnativeschool.com how to do React Native development. So I thought I'd just share a little bit as I'm working on an example for an upcoming project. So what I've got going on here, it's a really simple app. It's like a little quiz app you can go through, answer questions, ask questions, answer questions, and kind of get this immediate feedback from it. It's really simple, as I said before. So what I've got going on is a basic stack navigator, two screens where I've got this quiz index, and you can actually go into a quiz. These screens are represented as such. This is the quiz. This is kind of where the primary stuff is. Quiz index, just kind of listing this stuff. Then I've got some data and some different components. So I figured I'd just bring you along on some hacking I'm going to do with this. So go ahead, hide myself and just focus on the screen, and we can go ahead and do this. So first thing I'm going to do, first feature I want to add is basically when you click through from the quiz index to the actual quiz, I want whatever this color that's actually shown up in the list view or the master list to kind of carry over into the actual quiz. So if we look at the quiz, the way it's set up is this container, which is a view that wraps everything in here. It's got a style on it, and that style sets a background color. So we want to override that. And the way we're going to override that is by passing it through navigation options with this navigate function. So what I'll do is actually pass an object. I'm using React Navigation for my navigation, but I can pass the color, which you can see we've already got sitting up here. So I'll just go ahead, copy these over. And we have that. So now going to the actual quiz, what I want to do is pull this out into a variable. So we'll say, actually, we don't need to do that. All we're going to do is pass this in an array so we can use kind of stack up different styles. And then I'll pass an object here as a second property. And I'm going to say this.props.navigation.getParam. And then that parameter we're passing, looking back at the quiz index, is color. So if I save this, we've got those two styles sticking together. First one works. Second one's not working. Why wouldn't it be working? So we're going from quiz index to quiz. This.props.navigation.getParam. Let's pull up the docs. This.props.navigation.getParam. Okay. We're setting a back. Oh, it should be background color. All right. Hello to everyone who's joining. Just a heads up, I have no idea what I'm doing. It's been like 4 months since I did a live stream, so bear with me on any rough points around the edges. I'll try and keep an eye on any comments in here, but just in case I miss them, just know I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing quite yet. So we went ahead, made this change for the background color. Let's go ahead and check now. Okay, so we can see we are carrying over these the correct background color based off of whichever list item they chose. So we've got that part. Next thing I want to do is, right now we've just got like a standard set of questions that we've just hard coded in there. So we'll go ahead and change this. So looking at the quiz, yeah, we're just importing this questions array or object from our data file. So what I'll do is create, let's see, we've got 3 different sets of questions. We've got space, westerns, and computer. So I'm going to create 3 different files for each one of these. So I'll say space.js, I'll say westerns.js, and then we'll say computers.js. So what we'll do next is actually copy over the content from here. So we've got questions. Instead of doing it, where we're exporting a constant, in this case, this questions array, we're just going to use export default in these other files. So we'll say export default. I'm actually not sure if that's valid syntax. I don't think it is. So we'll say const space is equal to this. Actually, we'll say questions. Then we can just copy it over more easily. Okay, so we've got one real question here, and then we can go ahead and say, we'll just put some fillers in here as well. We'll say, which number is 3 instead? 3, 3, 1, 2, 4. Okay. So we got questions. We can export those. We'll go ahead and take this questions. We'll put westerns in here. Actually, we want to get space, use this pattern. I don't actually know what this question is, but it was the first one I had, so we're just going to stick with this Roy Rogers Dale Evans Museum. We'll keep the second question the same. So that's westerns, we've got space, and then computers. We'll just use another silly question like this. What is the capitalized version of A? Go ahead, copy this over. So you can kind of see here, based off my data structure, how I'm doing a bit of the logic to check if things are working. Basically, I just pass a flag of correct, true, for whichever option is correct. So we've got all of our data set up. What I'll want to do next, so we've got our questions, which we're pulling into quiz.js, which is this screen. What we'll want to do is actually pass the questions along with navigation. And there are more efficient ways we could do this, but at least, to get started, it'll do something for us here. So we want to go to the quiz index, and we will say, let's see. So it's just going to be an array. Okay, so what we'll say, questions, and then we'll just go ahead and do an inline require of /data/space.js. That should work. I'll just go ahead and copy this over for the other ones quickly. This time we'll do westerns and computers. It seems I have a syntax error. Unexpected token. All right, I'm not sure why that's not working. Save this, see if it'll refresh. And this app that I'm working on is actually based, I'm building it on top of Expo. Oh, all right, there's the issue. Okay, this one's westerns, space, and then we'll put in computers. Now, why doesn't it like this one? Oh, sometimes I just don't get this. All right, we'll start with the first one. How about that? Okay, so we know we're passing over data in space.js. So what we can do now, going to quiz, instead of importing questions, so I'll look everywhere I have questions in here. Okay, so this one's going to be special. So we're just going to say total count is going to be 10. Fix this. We're going to remove questions up here, that import. And then down here, what we'll say is the current question is equal to, let's see, we'll say const questions is equal to this dot props dot navigation dot get param questions. And then we can pass a default value with React Navigation via get param like that. So now we can say questions at this.state.active question index. We'll save this, go into space, and it's not working. So we should be passing that. Okay. So we've got undefined is not an object, which means that looking here, questions isn't an object, so we can't try to access something at this index. So let's actually see. Maybe I'm getting the wrong type in here. Console.log questions. Something random just imported. Okay. So I'll turn on remote debugging. Wait a second for this to load. Okay, go into space. Okay, so it's based on the way that we're importing this that's causing an issue. So what if we actually try to change something? I have no idea if this will work, but this would be efficient if you got more efficient with a large set of data. So we could say question data file name. Let's do that, and let's pass space in here. So I'm just going to return null, just so that we're not trying to access things and breaking anything. But instead, we'll go ahead and try to access this. So what I want to try to do is do a require of whatever the file is directly within my quiz file. So maybe it'll make more sense if I actually do it. So we can say question file name. And then before, the issue we were having was, since this is a require statement, it wasn't quite working right. So it's, at least the linting's throwing an issue with that. Let's get this right. Okay, that's saying it's invalid. What if we say const file name? Rather, const path is equal to this, require the path. Space. Now we've got all kinds of errors going on here. So regarding the auto import of console, I don't know. Typically I have, this is a question in the chat, but typically I don't have that error issue. It's just the way I've got it set up right now to make all my text bigger and do like teaching. Sometimes that just happens. I'm not sure why. So I'm at a loss right now for why this is bugging out. But when in doubt, kill it and start over. All right, so we're going to say yarn run iOS. And while that's happening, I'm going to just rethink this. So we know we're not going to do that. All right, we're going to take a step back and go back to kind of the way I think makes most sense. So what I'll do first is actually, let's just say import space questions from data space. Yeah, okay, so that's where our questions are going to be. So we're just going to go ahead and pass those on questions. So now going back to quiz, I should be able to access questions. If I spelled that right. And we'll set a default value of an empty array here. Let's go ahead and log this to see what happens. Had that auto import again. Now it's causing errors. Okay. And sometimes with Expo, it just gets into a weird state where I just got to refresh it a handful of times to get it to work again. Oi, okay. Let's try to fix this. All right, I'm going to turn on. We've got remote debugging, so I just need to find the window now. All right, go into space. All right, so we see our array of questions. That's good. So we can get rid of this null. And then what we're going to do is set the current question. And we can get the current question by saying questions at, or using this syntax, which I'm not actually sure what it's called. So questions at the index of this.state.current, or active question index, which is what I've got set up here. Then let's see if we can actually see the first question. Okay, so we're seeing the first question. That is good. What I want to do with this is actually go ahead and using this, I actually want to get the total count of the questions here. So how would I do this? So I guess I would want to do this. This.props.navigation.getParam questions, and then say .length. Let's see if that works. Okay, so that seems to be working. And then we have an issue here because we have an empty array. So let's go ahead and set up our other questions. We've got our Western questions. And then we're going to have our computer questions. So we'll go over here. Questions is going to be Western questions, and then finally we'll have questions is going to be computer questions. Unable to resolve that. I need to add an S to Westerns and an S to computers, because some things are plural, some things aren't. Such is my naming schemes. Okay, going into Westerns, we've got the right first question, we've got the right third question. So which number is 3? That works, that works. Cool. Now what I want to do, actually, I'm going to commit this. We'll say change data model to be dynamic. Oh, and we can actually, I have this published over at the React Native School GitHub. So we've got this at React Native quiz. Post that in here in the chat if anyone wants to look at the code as we're working with it or try to run it. Okay. Next thing I want to do in this little application is once we finish the question, so once we go through all 2 of the questions that are in here, all 20, whatever it is for that set, I want to automatically go back to the quiz list. So what we'll want to do, if we go through, okay, so what's going to happen is we'll answer it. It's going to go ahead, update state down here and everywhere else. And then it'll set a timeout 750 milliseconds later. We'll go to the next question. Now, right now what's happening is we basically just restart the quiz because initially I just had this as a one screen thing. So what we want to do is in here, rather than changing the next index or updating the correct count. Why is it? So we're not using correct count. Well, here. Okay, so what's going to happen if the next index is greater than or equal to the total number of questions we have, then we're going to want to jump back to our list. So we can say this.props.navigation.pop should work here. We'll see what'll happen. Okay, so now if we go into space, what's the 5th planet from the sun? That's going to be Saturn. No, it's not. It's Jupiter. All right, which number is 3? 3 is 3. So cannot read property question of undefined. Okay, so what's happening here? So the issue's happening down here, I think. Cannot read property question of undefined. So current question is showing up undefined. Why is that happening here? Actually, let's just... okay, so what's happening is we're increasing the next index beyond what the total count is, and we're still updating the state. So before we're popping the screen from the stack, we're still updating the state, throwing this error. So if I throw a return here, and I'll just return an empty object, we'll do that. If I do this, go into space, we can say, what would it be, Jupiter, gives us the correct answer, which number's 3, 3 is. All right, cool, so it's popping us back. We're kind of getting a sense of what's happened here. So that's getting there, getting better. And then I haven't decided what exactly I want to happen on this screen, but let's pull up React Navigation docs. All right, so what I'm looking for is seeing, can we actually change the text color for this dynamically to actually match whatever this background color is down here. So I will want to go into the API for the Stack Navigator, and then I'm looking at the navigation options. Because navigation options we can set dynamically. So we'll actually work on the header title in a moment. And then we're going to look for header tint color, perhaps. We'll try that. Okay, so we'll want to go to where we have our navigation information set up. We're going to go down here and set up our navigation options. We can pass a function to navigation options, which has the prop navigation on it. So we'll set the header title to be a header title, which we need to set. So we'll just go ahead and say title. we can pass that through params. Space, westerns, computers. Okay, so we can say navigation.get param title. See if this works. Cool, looking like it is. We're getting that navigation going on here. And next up, we'll try the header, what was it? Header tint color. And I'm just gonna set this to red to see if we can dynamically set, or if it's what I expect it to be. Okay, and it is. Cool, so we can update this little bit of branding to match the rest of the screen. So we're passing that via color, so we can say navigation.get param color. All right, text is kind of matching as we go through the screens. May not be the most readable thing, but hey, it's just kind of a fun little exercise right here. So something I'm noticing here is our status bar is actually seemingly disappearing, but we're just changing the color. So we'll go ahead and fix that to be dark content. And that can be set via the status bar component, which is coming from React Native. All right, so now it's visible. Now everything's working. Okay, let's see here. So we've got our quick little quiz going on. Let's go ahead and make some style changes just to see if it improves anything. So within our actual quiz screen, we have our view, which is wrapping everything. Inside of our view, we have a safe area view. And within this safe area view, we're kind of aligning content. So what happens with the safe area view? Yeah, we've got this justify content space between. So what's happening is we've got a view right here, a view wrapping our question answers this component, and then we've got this count down here. So the way space between is working in this case is, since I've got a view up here, a view down here, and a view here, it's going to maximize space between all of those. So basically it's distributing everything evenly between it. But what if we change this, and actually, what if we just get rid of this top view so that we just try to maximize space between these two things? So we can see it kind of bumps everything up to the top. What if we add a padding top of 100 up here, just to see, does this look a little bit more visually pleasing? It's not doing anything. Okay, so that I think gives it a nice bit of space. It also gives us space for longer questions, more answers, whatever it may be. Yeah, so last thing I think I'm going to do today on this is change the actual background tint color when you tap one of these buttons. So if we look at our quiz index, we're rendering a row item here, and then each row item's getting that prop of color. So let's see if there's a prop, which I think there is, to change kind of the active opacity or something along those lines. So we can set the active opacity here, which might work. So it's defaulting to 0.02. We'll try 0.05. Okay, that's still not quite what I'm wanting. So maybe we would actually be better served here by a touchable highlight. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, so with a touchable highlight, we can set an underlay color. So let's go ahead and try that. We'll import a touchable highlight. We'll swap out this touchable opacity. We'll change the underlay color. We'll just set this to red for now. See if this kind of does what we want. Okay, so what if we actually just set this to the color? Does that just make it look like nothing's happening? It does. So we could, I'm not going to do this. I'm actually going to stick to, well, here, we'll do it and I'll just undo it because I don't really want this. So what we could do, there's a package on NPM. I think it's, yeah, color conversion and manipulation. But what we could do is actually like lighten what the active button color is. That way it could kind of, let's see, we'll set the underlay color back to red. So if we look here, we can kind of see a little bit of that hint of color underneath, and it's kind of mixing the active color and the, like what the underlay color is. And we could kind of, something we could do is actually take, using a library like color, convert this, yeah, we could use a lighten or darken to kind of give it a similar underlaying color, just so it's a bit more consistent with whatever that styling is. I don't know. It's just an option. It's kind of, yeah, it's just something you can do if you're so inclined to. But what I'm just going to do is change the active opacity just so it's a little bit less drastic because I do have these darker colors here. I don't want it getting super opaque on this white background that I've got. So now setting an active opacity, on a touchable opacity this time rather than the highlight, it just looks a little bit more natural, I think. So I think that's going to be it for today. But I'll look through the comments quickly. So as for this comment in here, React Native or React JS logic part, same or different? The way you think about an application is going to be very similar. You're just using different components and targeting different platforms between React Native and React JS. So if you learn React, which I typically say, spend some time learning React before you move to React Native, your mental model is going to be the same between the two, and you can kind of develop between the two. There are intricacies with React Native because at the end of the day, you are developing a native application, so there's some things you need to know there. But hey, that's what I'm here to teach via React Native School and everything else. So yeah, with all that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up today. I hope this was some value. I'd like to do some more of this live coding because sometimes I just tinker around with React Native and maybe some people would find that valuable. So if there's anything you'd like me to do in one of these live streams, let me know via a comment or shoot me an email. If you want to learn more about React Native, go to reactnativeschool.com. There's 75 plus articles on developing with React Native and all kinds of other good stuff. So until the next time, I'll see you later.